G'day everyone and welcome to the round 2 Australian Esports NRS Racing Series. We've got the Yorkshire circuit, the Old Worlds course from 2019, and I'm here with Katie Bates. Katie, how are you today? You had a time trial last week and last round. This time we got a road.
Yes, good to see you, Jethro. And, I think that beyond anything, as you may notice, I'm wearing a little bit of hiking apparel this week because it's freezing. And I think that the only place to be riding your bicycle at the moment, if you're not in the European summer, is definitely indoors on Zwift. So I reckon we might get a few more people joining in this series as we go, because we're on week 2, but there are 4 in total, of course. And I think tonight, well, it'll be a bit different to the time trial last time, where you had to be pretty brave to set out on that. But Harrogate, well, 28k, 2 laps around that circuit, just over 400 metres of climbing. It's not too bad, right? Like someone like Mark O'Brien's going to make it hell for everybody out there. But I think that there will be a few riders who fancy their chances on this kind of course.
Yeah, definitely. We just got to look at the standings from last week. We saw the time trial was taken out by Ollie Jones from the New Zealand. Well, he's a New Zealander, but he's riding for St George Continental. The CCS, the Canberra Cycling team as well in second place, and the Gold Coast Cycling Club in third place. With second place was Ben Hill from the CCS. Third place was Connor Reardon from St George. They did very, very well. And we'll get the women's up as well, but the women's was dominated by Inform with Chelsea Holmes, Eloise Sandow and Carly Taylor going the 1, 2, 3. So pretty good, but you're right, Katie, it's certainly, I don't think there's really a more effective way to warm yourself up in any means than riding on Zwift. And it's kind of an oxymoron to the Yorkshire course. So if anyone remembers, it was full of rain during that edition, but I wonder if it'll be raining in game. That would be on point.
It is. I mean, I always feel quite like I've made a really good decision when it's either raining outdoors or raining in game, and I feel quite satisfied in my little pain cave. I think we've got pictures coming through. We'll jump down when we do, because we want to catch all of the action. We're looking at the fellas to start. And as you mentioned, Ollie Jones was the one who kind of powered with the time trial in round 1. The Hill brothers were 2nd and 4th, but worth noting that they're actually racing for different teams. And Connor Reardon did a pretty good job for Gold Coast. So, I think tonight will be a bit interesting because the numbers are a little bit more impactful, of course, than in a time trial. So how much of a team effort goes into it. And it looks like we've got a little bit of a move off the front from Roberts, who's trying to just shake them up early. So only 1.2k in. This definitely qualifies as an early break.
Yeah, it certainly does. I'm really excited to see how this racing will go with the NRS teams and just a little bit of extra dynamics with the race. We've got Cameron Roberts has just chinged off the front now. He is a teammate of Ben Hill, who, of course, was 2nd, as you mentioned. Torben Partridge Madsen as well. He's got the fastest sprint. He is also part of this team. So I think we might see a little bit of action there. Partridge Madsen can sit back in, sit in the bunch and let the others chase and hopefully wear them down, because he'd like a sprint as well. But this course is super interesting because basically straight out of the gate, everyone, they hit this little climb, and it's about 5% for a K in a straight line. So they're already hitting 6, 7 watts per kilo, and they will average that wattage for the duration of this climb. And there's already 3 just forming a little group, one from Nero, one from St. George, Katie.
Well, and it's worth noting that we are looking at this view from the front and back, but most of the riders tend to look at it from their own view, and so they won't be able to see where all of the riders are in the same way. They tend to do it a bit more like they're actually on the bike, but you can zoom around and take a look at the different camera angles to see where everyone is. And that comes into play a little bit because when we talk about climbing, whether it's a straight line climb or a hairpin, a lot of it is to do with losing sight of someone. But it's a little bit different here. You can actually follow riders. You can follow along on Zwift Power and see how much effort they're putting out. And sometimes know that you don't even have to chase too early or worry too early because you can see that they're at a crazy heart rate. For example, Cameron Roberts is sitting around the 190 mark. Campbell Pithy, he's also sitting in the 180s. You can look at those numbers and know that they're putting in a very solid effort. Now, can they keep holding that? If these 3 work together well, they may establish a small break, but it's so early, and they do have certainly some riders who'd be interested in jumping across. But team dynamics, Jethro, it's really an interesting one in this because regardless of the names that we see up front, we've got the CCS team, we've got St. George represented, we've got Nero Continental, we've got all of the big names. And when someone like Ollie Jones from St. George goes whack, you do not let him go. My coach used to always say, you don't let someone leave the island. Never let one person leave the island. And they certainly, least of all, Ollie Jones. I mean, come on, fellas. Time to wake up. Where is Mark O'Brien when we need him?
Yeah, I know.
I saw the start list. Is he out? Maybe he didn't even make. Oh, I'm scrolling through, Jethro. I don't think he made it tonight. I'm disappointed. I saw his name on the start list and I thought this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's just down to, well, there might be only 2 for Inform make today, but you noticed on that downhill, and we might see that as they come around, because they're doing 2 laps of this course, on the descents, a lot of the riders, watts per kilo, their power dropped to 0. And the reason why is because when you go over 7%, negative 7%, so really steep, descent, you actually go into the super tuck if you stop pedaling. And in some cases, over 7%, you're actually faster in doing that, or you don't go any slower than if you were pedaling. So it's a chance for riders to stop pedaling, let their avatar go into the aero tuck, and actually pick up speed as you would in real life. But we've got the women's, as the men's are sort of bunching up now, and it might hit a little bit of a holding pattern, but the women are now just over the top of the main part of the climb, and it looks like we've got a front group of 7 and a lot from Butterfield's Racing, 1 from the Women's Racing Project, and that, of course, is Brianna McDonald, and I can't see Carly Taylor there. Katie, Carly Taylor from who was finished 3rd last round.
I think she may not have made the start line tonight based on what I am looking at. This is going to be a really tough course when you're already essentially down to that select final group. At what point, I mean, for anybody who was watching Tour of Slovenia the other night, we saw that fantastic paper, scissors, rock between Pogacar and Rafa Majka, which I think is just one of the best moments for him. He's got a good sense of humour, doesn't he? But it's true that when you are racing with a teammate and you may be in a break with a teammate, you're still racing. And you have to figure out, are you just going to let somebody else win? Are you going to race each other to the line? And when we have a dynamic where more than half of the bunch is one particular team, you have to assume that at some point they will switch from just racing to each other to being able to race against each other. It'll be an interesting point in the race, I think, when that happens, but I don't reckon that'll happen until maybe the first lap. Like, get through the first lap, you reckon, and see how the legs are going before they start getting the competitive on within the team.
Yeah, that's right. There's two main sort of climbs in this course. 13 kilometer laps we're doing, and both laps. Well, in one lap, you've got about a 1.5 kilometer climb twice. There's the Hollow Hill, I think it's called, and then the standard World KOM, which is about the same. So it's 1.5 k's at about 5%. So it's really a power climb, and these riders, the men and women, are doing it in around, it's about a 2 minute effort for both of them. So, yeah, you want to test yourself on that first climb, which they hit straight away, and then they'll hit the second KOM a little bit later in the lap, which we might see the men approach very soon. But in the men's race, it's all together. It doesn't look like anyone's been shelled. There's 16 in the field. And at this point in the race, usually, Katie, we see the bunch kind of just consolidate a bit. I think they're all waiting for the next climb. They know it's not going to be a smart move to try and break away before the main climb, but there is a little bit of action happening. Dylan McKenna from Nero he was at the front early as well, and he's having a go. The Nero team, funnily enough, usually would have more numbers in a race like this, but a lot of them have gone to Belgium to race. And unfortunately, they went to Belgium, got there. The next day, all their team got corona. So they're now isolating. So old Dylan, some of the Nero boys here, like Dylan McKenna, are actually flying the flag along with Sam Hill. So better indoors
heavens,
today.
isn't that a terrible outcome? Well, that is, I mean, again, for anybody keeping up with Tour of Switzerland, I think odds on at the moment, if you're a bookie, to even figure out who will start the Tour de France might be a bit of an interesting one.
Yes.
Now we've got at this point, I think before they get too far into the race, Jethro, I reckon we need to introduce our fun prizes that the Mastermind production team at NRS and Zwift have come up with, because, you know, what keeps it more interesting than having a few little awards, and we've got a Ride of the Night award, and that one, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, pause.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Not sure if you could hear me tapping on my desk there. Good microphone if you could. Sorry if you couldn't. Is the Golden Bilby award.
Mm-hmm.
Most combative, Jethro, what are we doing for that?
That, of course, is going to be called the Honey Badger Award, named after that aggressive marsupial. I'm not sure, but yes, that's going to be the Honey Badger Award. And
I think it is. Let me Google it.
So, there's prizes for being attacking. And, we're seeing the orange light up in the watts per kilo now, Katie, as they hit the slopes, or perhaps they've got the audio on and are listening and want a piece of that Honey Badger action. But, it's all kicking off just now, and I quite like the Olivers racing there. Who is that in the Olivers kit? Could be Campbell Jones, Ryan Britton, Fintan Conway. Those are three riders for Olivers, but they've got their own kit in game. And Ollie Jones, he is the most aggressive so far. I feel like his name has been at the top of the leaderboard for pretty much the entire race. He's also got Bennett there. That's Ivan Bennett from Nero in second place. And Partridge Madsen, he's got a big, big sprint on him. He's also following. So a lot of people responding early. Ben Hill as well. He was obviously second in round one. He's up there again too. And we're seeing some gaps now, Katie. Open up.
Yeah, this is where it is getting quite aggressive. Now, this is the point where I tell you I've Googled it. And in fact, a honey badger is a mammal. Which shame on both of us for heading for marsupial, but it is what it is. We're educated now. And I think that I think given the nickname of these men in lycra, not to say many of these are middle-aged, but still I think mammal is very appropriate for the honey badger. It's for Ollie Jones to be on the attack so early. They're on a mission. Like you wouldn't have forgiven them for almost spending the first lap warming up and then really hitting it hard the second, but they're very clearly out to make a little bit of damage. It's good to see Partridge Madsen on the move too. He had such a good run in kind of toward the end of last year. He got so much form, especially in esports. And I feel as though he had a little bit of downtime and he's really starting to build up again. And I think that he will probably bound past the level he was at last season. And we often see that in esports, they just pull together the physiology and learning how to race and take big steps forward. Something we'll also see in the women, they're on the climb now. Are they going to be nice to each other, or are we going to see them start to shred legs a little bit here? It's a small bunch. From a strategic point of view, they'd be absolutely forgiven for not going too early. It's 28K. They're only 8 kilometres in, still 20K left to go. A smart race doesn't necessarily mean that you end with the highest watts or even the highest output. It's about getting across the line first, because it's a scratch race.
Yeah, that's right. And at the moment, it's Butterfield's Racing versus the Women's Racing Project. Now, Hayley Oakes and Brianna McDonald are the two in that group. They are representing the Women's Racing Project. You can see the WRP on Brianna McDonald's avatar there on the right-hand side. The rest are all for Butterfield. So if they wanted to, Butterfields could send a couple of riders and let their other teammates just kind of maintain a steady watts, a 4.5 watts per kilo, and let their riders ride away like these two here, Nicholson and Simpson are. The other Butterfields riders in the bunch can sit back and just trying to sit behind the avatars of Oakes and Brianna McDonald and try them wear them down that way. It's a good way to utilise team dynamics and allow them to get some rest. But I guess on the slopes of 7 or 8% that we're seeing here, as they push on around 5 watts per kilo, you're not getting a lot of draft, but there's still that element of, oh, geez, I need a chase because that is the Butterfields ahead and we're the only ones left. But it doesn't look like anyone's throwing any real haymakers yet, because they can all sit, Katie, on that sort of 4.5 watts per kilo mark. I think when we see a real heavy attack, it's going to be in the 6 to 7 watts per kilo. So it's going to stay together, I think, over the top of this climb.
I just wrote down haymakers. You're like the Aussie version of Dave Toll. He throws down these fantastic one-liners, and I frantically scribble to try and write some of them down, and then at some point pretend that they're mine and steal them from him. So I've just written down haymaker. That's the first one I've written down for you, though. We'll get a book going by the end of the season.
They're going.
Although we're nearly halfway through. So, now we've got these two riders, the Butterfields ladies, riding away. If they start to work together well, I do think it could be a gap that could actually just grow and grow and grow, because there's nobody behind who's going to work particularly cohesively together. In saying that, already, even on this slope, little gaps opening up. So these pair need to get a bit more in lockstep if they're going to make this break work. Now, just looking at those powers and those heart rates over in the men's side of things, things are continuing to just ramp up at the current speed. They'll be finishing this 28K in around the 37.5 minute mark. Whew, that's pretty cracking, considering. Oh, now let's take it. Can we talk about this power tuck? We just saw it for a second. We've got McKenna and Connor Reardon. Woo. Wow. Now, this is an interesting pairing, because they are, Connor Reardon, he did exceptionally well in the time trial, of course. He was third. Dylan McKenna always has a highlighter for one of the most talented up-and-comers. So what's going on here, do we think?
I think they're off the back.
What's this conspiracy theory? Yes, but how has this happened?
Connor's actually on the Zwift. He's on the Zwift bike, like just the standard bike. That's that white one that you can see there. That is the bog standard Zwift road bike.
Bog standard. There you go. I've just written down another one.
Absolute stinking choice for this course. And unfortunately,
but I actually believe, I don't mean to cut you off there, but I do believe from Wes at Zwift that it doesn't matter what bike you choose, it's all neutralised back end, as they do with the World Championships.
Okay.
But you've then got to question why he would choose that bike just from a fashion police. He is lucky, Anna, Russell is not commentating, but just to let you know,
Yep.
Dylan, she's on production. She can see what you've done there. Connor Pithy, Campbell Pithy, sorry. He rides for St. George, but I believe he's a Kiwi. And so Anna
It's a
would be
strong New Zealand
cheering.
vibe.
Now, if you
Yeah,
go, we've got a couple of Kiwis in the St. George team, and if you actually go into his Zwift Power profile, it has in very capital letters Kiwi. So he clearly doesn't want to be mistaken for a Sydney sider. No worries, Mr. Pithy.
mm,
Pithy bro,
yeah.
perhaps. Look, I'm close line before I get booted off here if I keep saying something like that. Anyway, look, he is making a solid move because a 4-second gap may not seem like much, but it's the most significant we've had at the moment. And the other riders actually need to get organised
And
if
they
they want to
are.
shut this down.
They are. They're all in one line. It was Partridge Madsen who was leading the chase. He pulled a big turn just then. You can just kind of see the bunch is certainly in one line as they chase Campbell Pithy. And at this point, once you've launched an attack and then you've settled in, it looks like he's going to settle in around about his threshold mark, that 5 watts per kilo mark. This is when the legs really start to burn. And as a rider on Zwift, as the rider up front, Campbell will be constantly looking at his power and then also looking at the power of the riders below his name on the right and seeing who's chasing, what are the numbers they're doing. And you want to see that plus 0.02 go up. And you're constantly looking at that, how they're going, is anyone coming across, and are the sort of gaps breaking up between the group? And I think he'll be happy to see that it actually is. He's causing a bit of pain to the group. You can see Adam Bemrose just getting distance a little bit more. They're right on the back, like Ivan Bennett from Nero. The front group now is down to only 8 riders, Katie. Ollie Jones was there, Ben Hill. And these riders at the back were on Partridge Madsen. He's now sitting at the back now, getting a little bit of draft. He can sit around that 5 watts per kilo mark while they try and pull him back. But I think we're going to see a counter, Katie, over the top of this, 3%. Someone might go over the top once Campbell is brought back to this group.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to launch an attack at any point, the best time to ever launch an attack is the moment, or even just before the moment that a break comes back, because it often is that moment where people hesitate a bit and think that might be a moment to freewheel. But you're right, there's been some damage done. Adam Bemrose, I think he's very capable of winning in a bunch sprint here. But to do that, he'll need to look after those legs. The fact that he was almost getting dagged off the back there a little bit, and they're about to go up some kickers, I think that might really hurt him. And I also think that provides an opportunity for the non-sprinters to hurt Ollie Jones. He's not hanging around for any of that. He's going for it again. Now, he actually went really early on that first lap, if you remember. So this is a part of the course that he knows really suits him and can be a massive pain point for everybody. Because when they're at this point, they're going up Harlow Hill, and it's actually, until they get to the forward climb, it's not too bad in the next couple of kilometres. And so once they get to about the 16K mark, they're home free in terms of that. Now, this is a big gap opening up pretty quickly. Already at 8 seconds, we were hailing 4 seconds being good, but when Ollie Jones goes, it'll go out to 10 in just a second. This is very, very dangerous. If he gets to 15, I can't see it coming back. The only opportunity I would say then would be people jumping across as opposed to the bunch actually coming back together.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I mentioned before, the fast, they're sort of averaging the best. They're averaging around 7 watts per kilo to go over the top of that climb. And Ollie Jones was sitting on that 7.5 watts per kilo for that entire effort. And I was really surprised not to see a proper reaction from the bunch. I think they were all sort of happy to, I don't think they expected to get a 20-second gap. They really need to respond now. And because there's a mix of riders in that chasing group, some from Nero, some from the Canberra Cycling Club, there's St George in there, and then also Adam Bemrose from Gold Coast Cycling Club. That's a real mix. They're going to have to work together. And well, that's kind of the perfect storm for Ollie Jones because he knows back there in the bunch, they're not all going to work together really, really nicely. Partridge, Madsen, Adam Benrose, they're going to want to sit on for a sprint. They're going to need to all work together handicap style because Ollie Jones is the strongest in the race. He won the time trial in round one, and now he's only got a time trial 12 kilometres, and he's got a 20-second lead.
Yeah, and their average speed isn't dropping at all. They're still looking at around the 38-minute mark. Although, that being said, that's actually Ollie Jones is looking at coming in at that time. And at current projections, based on how he's riding away, Zwift would predict that he will win by about 40 seconds, which is a really interesting feature in Zwift Power if you ever want to check that out. Over on the women's side, things are looking distinctly similar. What can I say? We are going for the solo break. Ella Simpson.
Ella from Watopia.
Now she's gone just through that first lap. She's now on that second lap. She's solo, 20 seconds ahead of her teammate. We flagged this straight away, didn't we? We thought if they worked together, they'd be a ripping pair. But immediately going down the descent, it looked like Simpson kind of didn't want a bar of that, wanted to keep going a little bit, and she's done so. I think we've got a bit of a hard choice on our hand between the Golden Bilby for the ride of the night and the most aggressive for the Honey Badger. I think the inaugural winners of said, can we call it a trophy? There's no just to let everyone know, there's no actual trophy.
Not yet.
Jethro might send you. Hold on, is there any like Western Australian treat that they don't have on the East Coast?
No, but I can draw on a lint bunny, the gold lint bunny. We can just sort of put Bilby on it instead.
So,
I think
we could get Anna to send you some pineapple fish. Chocolate pineapple fish from New Zealand. That good pineapple lumps, yes. Maybe there aren't even pineapple fish. Yes. Well, anyway, look, I'll Google that later. yes. I'm a bit confused with my treats, but yes. Look, we will figure out something for the winner, the aggregate winner of our awards. Yes. But Ella Simpson certainly putting in the hard yards. What she needs to do now, and it's not just about winning, but it's also about for your person to be able to just settle into a routine, rhythm out there, keep the heart rate at a good level, and keep the power as consistent as she possibly can. You know how much I love esports, Jethro. The one thing, and we're working on this, I believe, our crack production team in Anna Russell will be fixing this for next round, making sure we can see the riders. Is I want to see how much they're suffering. Does that make me a sicko? Yeah. I don't know. If it does, it does. But their avatars look so controlled, and you just know that they are in a world of hurt, and we want to see that. And so we requested that, and Anna, the genius, is going to bring that to us next time so that we can play along at home and see that. Now, the Chase Bunch on the women's side, they actually don't look like they're working that well together, more that they're all fairly content. Yes, but Ollie Jones is, he's storming away. It appears to me that he's broken the spirit and the legs of those chasers. And so I'm wondering, is one of these chasing riders going to jump across? Because 12 or 13 seconds is that nasty distance where it's close but not close enough.
Yeah, and they're running out of road to get to him. This is Ben Hills launching a move as well. They're all sort of just trying to hurt each other and just try to go across on their own. They need full commitment from everyone, but it is coming down. And even though it's still 12 seconds, there's 9 kilometres to go, including a big climb here. And like I said before, Ollie will be looking at that 12 seconds constantly, one eye on that and looking at the bunch behind. And they can't afford to sit up. It's sort of splitting up here. Hill, Ivan Bennett's been really good for Nero tonight, Bennett. It's a good ride from him. I don't actually know much about him, but it's a great ride, and this can be how you put yourself on the map while there's no other NRS racing going on, is on the esports, because it's just raw power. Partridge Mardson's having a go now as well. Roberts, this is where the benefit of the group will take some time back on Ollie Jones on this descent. I think they go do a little descent here, and the bunch certainly has an advantage just from the rolling momentum. But, geez, Ollie Jones, he's the strongest time trialist. And, yeah, the bunch, it's only down to 6 or 7 chasing now. And it's hard to organise a chase with so many different teams represented there. But look at him go, the Kiwi. He's going to go, he wants back-to-back titles.
I think he does. He's getting greedy. He's also, at this rate, going to pick up 2 bags of pineapple lumps, which is actually... No, hold on. He's a Kiwi. We're going to have to send him Tim Tams. I don't think it would be sporting for him to get a treat that he has easy access to. I want to talk about the power tuck. That's what we're seeing from Ollie Jones at the moment. What a thrill that you get to do it in esports, as you don't get to in the real racing anymore. Now, I've heard from some of the riders who are doing the elite esports racing that when they do the power tuck, they actually pedal backwards because they're concerned about the dead leg phenomenon happening when they just stop pedaling in the middle of a pretty intense race. I'm really curious your opinion on this, Jethro. I've been very vocal on Zwift Community Live saying I think you're nuts if you stop pedaling. That you're gambling a little bit when you start pedaling again as to how your legs may feel. But some people, they will argue black and blue that few seconds not pedaling and recovery can really bring them back to life.
Yeah, I guess on the descents, I always pedal because it's actually, for me personally, I often get dropped on the descents after making the effort on the hill. But in some research settings with regards to cycling performance, when they're testing different training methods in a research setting, sometimes in a recovery interval, they will instruct the participant to actually backpedal during the recovery zone, just as a means to, well, I don't know, it was just one means of recovery to keep their legs spinning as opposed to stopping completely. So I don't know. I guess it depends on how you are as a rider. Also, backpedaling is not amazing for the drivetrain as well. You risk maybe messing your gearing up. It can can sometimes jump the chain. Then you go to pedal again, and all of a sudden, you're in the wrong cog. What if you jump into a really hard cog and you're on another riser, and all of a sudden you thought you were in the 18, you're now in the 12. Yeah.
I heard you thought you were in the A team, and I was like, and now you're in the what? But then I realised you said 18. But it's very valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that each rider has to figure it out for themselves and have a bit of a play. And actually, these are some pretty good opportunities in this kind of racing that is significant, but a smaller field, to have a little bit of a play and see what may work and whether it might work for their legs or not. We're coming pretty close to the finish. I reckon it's almost award time. What do you think?
Yeah, 24 seconds. Ollie Jones is not going to be caught, but Partridge Mardsson is trying to basically wrap up second place, and he's got a 6-second gap back to the bunch now. Cameron Pithy, Ivan Bennett there. They're trying to chase. You can see the numbers lighting up like a Christmas tree in that third chasing group, but third sucks, First place is out of the table, but Mr. Torben PM, he is just trying to wrap up second place. So he's in the time trial now. Ollie Jones must be on a downhill section there. You can see the watts per kilo just drop a little bit there. And Partridge Madsen's also got the polka dot jersey, so he's actually hit the KOM the fastest, yet he is not in front. So I guess that shows that Ollie Jones, well, it just shows how fast they're going and the tactics and timing of when you launch your move. But Torben's looking pretty good here for second place. He's got 6 seconds, and the group
He
behind,
is.
well, there's only 5.
Well, and look, Adam Bemro's got that green jersey. Now, let's just have a little discussion amongst us. It is a democracy here. Nobody's vote counts more than the other, but given you're the host, Jethro, I think that you do have the final vote for any of our awards.
Yes.
But what do you think about the honey badger? I mean, to me, it would be very hard to look past Ollie Jones.
Yeah, he attacked on the first climb. Basically, as soon as we went to pitches, it was Ollie Jones. I think his name's been at the top of the list all day. And I think we're going to be running with him. And he certainly deserves it. The Honey Badger's on screen there, the Honey Badger Award, most combative.
I'm proud of that. That's really making me laugh.
The producer, Anna, what an absolute legend.
Yes.
It's friendly, but he's got claws. As Nick Cummings once said, they can rip certain parts of your body off, those claws. And Ollie Jones, well, that's what he's done to the bunch. Ripped 10 to shreds. Sam Hill is now getting amongst it as well, Katie, as the Honey Badger. Well, he's just steaming along. About 4Ks for him to go. I'm going to be interested to see what happens for that battle for second place. In the meantime, we have Caitlin. So is that Caitlin? No, Emily Simpson, excuse me, is out front. I wonder what a gap is now. Almost out to a minute. Nicholson from Butterfields is in second place. And we've got Oday Lynch, Mick Sporaran and Brianna McDonald. They're the next group. And it's funny because I have been seeing every time we've crossed over to the women's, Katie, Brianna has been relied on to do the chasing in that second group of 3. And that's because she is representing the only team that isn't Butterfields in that group of 3.
Yeah, I feel as though Brianna probably deserves some pineapple lumps just for coping with that group dynamic that she's encountered in that chasing group. I reckon for the ride of the day, it's going to be pretty hard to go past Ella Simpson because on current projections, she's going to win by about 1.5 minutes if she keeps this pace up. So what a way to kick off the Golden Bilby for Ella Simpson. What a great ride. And the jersey, well, kind of matches the award, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. Yellow jersey. I don't mind that at all. Golden Bilby for Ella Simpson. Pretty happy with that. I remember once my favourite Easter egg, the Red Tulip brand. I think they rebranded the egg as a Bilby one time in the Ode to the Australian Way. And I was happy about that because it actually looked like it appeared that the bunny or the Bilby was bigger. So I thought we was getting more chocolate because they used the Bilby shape. But anyway, Ella Simpson, absolute machine. She's winning by over 1 minute. And anyone who rides Zwift, you got to know it's very, very difficult to maintain a gap and build it when you're out solo because it's much, much harder out there on your own. But she's just settling in now, still around 5 watts per kilo. I mean, that is really, really impressive. We're just going to swap over to Ollie Jones. They're getting close to the finish now. He's got about 1,500 metres to go, Katie. It's been an epic ride. Ollie Jones had to go solo here. There's some big sprinters in that bunch. Patrice Madsen, Adam Bemrose with, 1,100 watts under the hood for a 15-second sprint on an ergo as well, which is insane. Ollie does not have a sprint. He's only operating in the 700-800 watt mark. If they came to a bunch finish, he'd get piped. So he knew he had to be aggressive from the start, and he was. And look at the result, Katie, 23 seconds.
Now, I've just written down your third for the night. He'd get piped. I love that. I'm going to share that with Dave Toll. He's going to take that one to America. Ollie Jones has had a sensational ride, and you are spot on saying that he's not the quickest sprinter in the world in a final kick. But what he can do is wear them down, and wear them down he has. He was aggressive from that first lap. He knew that this is the way he wanted to finish the race. He almost dared them. Catch me if you can. Try and come with me if you can. Nobody could. The fact that he's still sitting over 6 watts per kg, chugging along. I'm actually pleased to see his heart rate up for once. It's taken a while. He's been riding so consistently and smoothly, but Ollie Jones will make it 2 from 2, Jethro.
Wow.
So far, I don't think that we need a calculator to figure out the top of the table, but it is a team's competition, not an individual one. So let's see how St. George come out in the wash. But what a great ride from Ollie Jones.
Yeah, super effort. He's established himself as the strongest rider in the NRS Esports Series so far. Sam Hill, we hadn't seen much of him today, and I think maybe hesitated a little bit when Ollie Jones went, but he managed to get away from that group quite easily. Got about a 12-second gap himself, and he's going to come across the line. You can see him. He's obviously sat up on the bike now. Got his gap. Partridge Martin, now we're seeing that sprint. We're seeing the power that Pithy as well is there, but looks like Partridge Martin's going to get the third place. Campbell Pithy doing a good job for St. George. They're getting fourth. That's good for their points. Obviously, first and fourth position. But I think in that men's group, I think they all, it's amazing, Kate. I think they all looked at each other when Ollie Jones went, because when he went and we saw that 7 just to 8 watts per kilo when he went on that hill, there was no response. They all sat at around 5 watts per kilo. They could easily do more than that for a 2-minute effort. And I really think they looked at each other, and then all of a sudden he had 20 seconds, and then, well, that was it. So I think a bit of a mistake from the bunch, from the men's, as we cross
to. You snooze, you lose, don't you? Which is what everybody did when Ella Simpson went on the move. Now she's over a minute ahead now. Incredibly solid ride, because it's not in lieu. It's not as though they're just letting her go and people aren't chasing. But it was over that first time up forward climb that she went. She maintained it over Harlow Hill. The next forward climb, she just increased it a little bit further. She's now on the down and the run in. She'll be quite relieved, I think, because she's been working pretty hard for the last 15 odd kilometres to keep this gap going out, but still maintaining a really good pace. Dropped a little bit from what we saw before, but at the same time, she's got a huge gap now. She's put that work in. And it looks like an unassailable lead. I will touch wood, though, because technicals, mechanicals of a nature can also happen in the Zwift world, can't they?
Yeah, that would be an absolute nightmare, the cutouts, and it's just something you don't want to see. Or you see the left-hand side with your power drop to 0, and there's a cutout. Someone's using a microwave too close to your ergo, but hopefully Ella Simpson will just continue powering on, and we'll have a look at the chase as well. We've seen Caitlin Nicholson is back there in second place. She's consolidated 30 seconds, and interestingly, Mick Sparran has actually distanced herself from Oday Lynch, who is from the Step Forward cycling team, and then Hayley Oakes from the Women's Racing Project is just a little bit further back as well. So they've kind of split up and in a bit of a hot pursuit of each other. But in the first round, Katie, it was a 1-2-3 for Inform. And today or tonight, there's a chance there that it's going to be a 1-2-3 for Butterfield's Racing in the teams. So really interesting there. But Oday Lynch from Step Forward, she's trying to get in the points as well. And McSparran and Lynch are having a bit of a war here.
Yeah, this is coming down to a bit of a cracking finish between for what will be third and fourth, which is pretty exciting. Ella Simpson has just ridden away with it. Caitlin Nicholson has been doing a fantastic job of maintaining her pace. She lost a bit of time initially, but she has actually gotten into a fantastic rhythm. Watching Lynch and McSparran really race for this finale is very entertaining. I mean, after all, that's what we're here for, right? We are here to be entertained, and entertained they are. That does sound a little bit funny, but so it is. The fellas have finished. The women, they're cracking along too. So they're going to finish around the 45-minute mark for 28K with 480 metres of climbing. that is not an easy task. They're averaging around 4 watts per kg, especially Ella Simpson, for this whole race. I dare anybody watching to give that a crack for 28K and see how you go. I think sometimes you can watch the screen and you can go, oh, the avatar's doing it so easy, because we can't see the literal blood, sweat and tears that we do see in the IRL, but it is there. They are still really working exceptionally hard to keep these numbers up. And I do find that that's, for anybody who ever watches any sport, you've got to get out there and give it a go to get a bit of perspective about what you're actually seeing and what you could do in comparison.
Yeah, definitely. And so much so on the ergo as well. It just there's a different style of hurt on your legs on the ergo. You're applying power to the pedals for a lot longer of the actual crank cycle, and so I really think it elicits a lot more damage to the legs as well. So we're also got to remember it's not just a flat 4.5 watts per kilo for the 43 minutes that we're on now. That's including spikes, big anaerobic neuromuscular efforts above your threshold and your power and that sort of stuff, and then you're settling back in. So there's a lot of pain going on, and these girls it's a reason why they're in the NRS racing for the NRS National Racing Series teams. They're very talented, and this is why I love Zwift and Zwift racing, because it's such a good platform to demonstrate your power on the bike. Whereas in real life, sometimes the racing doesn't go as planned and you can't necessarily show yourself and the power you can do. So this is an opportunity for all these young ladies here to give themselves a red hot go, as Ella's got about 1 kilometre to go. And I'm just having a look here on the Zwift companion app. Carly Taylor from Inform, who obviously was third place last week, she was riding only 45 minutes ago, doing a bit of a warm-up, it looks like. So I wonder if she had some technical issues is the reason why she's not on board today.
Maybe she blew a foo-foo valve. That is not good at all. Carly Taylor, we're sending you our best. Now, just a shout out to her as well, and hopefully her very intact foo-foo valve, is that she was appointed as the assistant race director, her and Nettie Edmondson, for the Women's Tour Down Under 2023, which will be World Tour. Carly Taylor, we bow to you. Her exceptional work with Zwift as an athlete, and now moving into the race organising. I think it's just absolutely sensational, and we're very, very pleased to be able to have such a woman leading in that area. But the woman of the day here, Ella Simpson, you made it sound like a beautiful romantic sport, Jethro, describing it as horrible and painful and terrible. But you know what? I think a lot of the riders out there, that's exactly what they're here for. They love it. They're signing up for it. And Ella Simpson, what a ride from her. Over 4 watts per kg average for the day. She will be very pleased with that ride, I imagine. Caitlin Nicholson, Jethro, she's had a really solid ride as well. She's averaged around 245 watts for this race.
Wow.
That is pretty impressive. I need to take a look at her numbers, but I reckon that is going to be way over her 20-minute PB, let alone what is now 45 minutes. So a big step up from Caitlin Nicholson, and good on her. I think that is a very impressive personal victory, even if she will take second for the day.
Yeah, definitely. And certainly scoring second with such a gap to third place as well is a really good, it's a nice thing to hang your hat on as well. And we saw earlier in the race, it was Nicholson and Simpson who went away together on that second climb. They kind of just danced away and then saw they had a gap, and then they really started stomping on the pedals. And we didn't quite see where they separated, but it might have been on the climb again. But it's always good to take a second place solo rather than second place in a bunch kick. Or maybe it depends who you ask, but either way, a really good ride for the Butterfield Racing, and the much needed points too for the overall points competition for the NRS. But to get a little win on your palmarès, I guess if you could call it, for Ella Simpson, it's pretty good. She's it says on Zwift she's under 20 years old, so I assume she's 19, maybe under 19 rider. That's pretty good as an NRS level rider. But we're seeing here Oday Lynch, or Odette Lynch, I'm going to say it's Oday Lynch, Step Forward Cycling for the racing team. She has managed to distance herself from Brown and McDonald, and she's going to take third place. That's a pretty good ride. She was kind of, anonymous in the bunch, and she's came out when it mattered and distanced herself from Browner and McSparran, and she's going to take third place and some much-needed points for Step Forward.
That is a very good ride. Now, I don't know whether you're right about it being Oday rather than Odette. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to Google that next. I've already Googled that a bilby is a marsupial. So now that we know a honey badger is a mammal and a bilby is a marsupial, we're good to go. But I'm thinking maybe with the Tour de France coming up, that you're getting all your French on already a little bit early. Maybe somebody can let us know on social media if it is Oday or Odette indeed. But wasn't that a great race? 2 solo winners and on a pretty cracking, tough course as well. This is setting it up for a good couple of weeks to come, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I'm really excited that AusCycling and Zwift have chosen these courses for the esports for the NRS, because these courses really elicit exciting racing like this. It's not the Champs-Élysées for 30 kilometres. This is the world's courses, which worlds are always on circuits, and circuits always elicit very exciting racing with small hills. And we saw a rider like Ollie Jones did not want to sprint. So we had to go out and attack and get it. And that put riders like, Patrick Madsen on the back foot, Bemrose, and Hill as well. So it was really exciting racing, and 2 solo winners. Well, actually, I think 1, 2, and 3 were all solo, weren't they, for both races?
Yeah.
So it was super exciting.
Very impressive. And I love that we're now calling him Torben PM. He was in third Torben PM. Sam Hill taking a great second to back up from his great result in the time trial as well. And of course, Ollie Jones, what a sensational win for him. Ben Hill it was that was second in the time trial, and Sam was fourth. They've flipped that around a little bit, but there's some pretty consistent point scoring. Now, considering this is actually a team competition, we're looking at the individual winners, but there will be a bit of a different points tally at the end.
Yeah, that's right. And the women's results we've got here, Oday Lynch. I'm going to say Oday. Oday, if I've got it wrong, make sure you put it in the comments and let me know how I can pronounce it. But you rode like a beast today in third place. Caitlin Nicholson, Ella Simpson, Butterfield's taking 1 and 2. A really good ride. And with the lack of informed riders, makes round 3 a super interesting prospect. Now, Katie, who have we got for round 3? We have the Watopia Climbing Series course. That's Tuesday, the 5th of July. Another climbing event. I wonder if the results will be similar, and I wonder if the bunch will let Ollie Jones ride away like he did.
Apologies for my mute. Happens on every call, right? You'd like to think not. You would like to think that they didn't just let Ollie Jones do what he did, but there is a big difference between letting him do it versus knowing he's going to do it and still not being able to do anything about it. The only dominance I've seen in the esports world on a regular basis like this has been Mark O'Brien. So Marco, here's your call up. Let's see what you can do against Ollie Jones. I'd be really interested in that. And of course, in line with the Tour de France, of course, we have the Champs-Élysées on the 19th of July. So that can be a great warm-up for anybody before they settle in to watch some of the mountains for the Tour de France, if you're not already sleep-deprived. But I throw the challenge out there because there's a whole group of riders who ride every day, like a Tour de France on Zwift. So we would love to see some of those files coming through and everybody just getting into the spirit on Zwift.
Yeah, that's right. As couldn't have said it better myself. Really exciting times to come. For the 5th of July is going to be round 3. We're going to Watopia, the climbing series. Katie, so exciting. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Of course, I'm Jethro from the Press Room Podcast. Katie, the absolute legendary commentator. So good to be back with you. I'm so excited for round 3, and I guess I'll see you there.
See you there.